All right, so we're diving into some swim workouts today.
Sounds refreshing.
Yeah, especially since I personally sink more than I swim.
Oh, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
True.
Yeah.
But anyway, somebody reached out and wanted to understand like the intensity and training cycle of a real swim team.
Okay.
And we actually have this Source 2024, 2025 workouts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a whole season's worth of practices to look at.
Oh, wow.
So
That's a lot of data.
yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
Should be fun to kind of go through and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for any athlete or really anyone with a fitness goal, understanding the training cycle is so important to optimize your performance.
Absolutely.
So this will be a good deep dive.
Okay, so let's jump right in, starting with September.
Okay.
We've got this September 5th practice pulled up.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, there's a lot of breath control drills and work on turns and dolphin kicks.
Mm-hmm.
It seems super focused on freestyle mechanics at this point.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Early season is often all about technique.
Okay.
Building that solid foundation, ensuring the essential movements are efficient and powerful before you start to ramp up the distance and intensity later in the season.
Yeah, you're not going to run a marathon before you can even jog a mile.
You got to build that base.
Right.
It's like building a house,
Oh.
You need a solid foundation before you add the walls and the roof.
So September is like building the swimming house.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But it seems like things get real as we move into mid-season.
They do.
So looking at this September 17th practice, we see an increase in the distance with 200-meter freestyle sets and a focus on negative splits.
Right.
Is that pretty typical for this time of year?
Absolutely. That's classic mid-season training.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're shifting from just building that base to now increasing your endurance.
Got it.
And negative splits are a great way to do that.
Okay.
Swimming the second half of a set faster than the first. It's not just about physical endurance.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's a huge mental game too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like telling your body, nope, we're not slowing down.
Right.
We're pushing even harder now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So speaking of pushing hard,
Okay.
let's talk about this November 29th practice.
All right, let's do it.
25 by 100 meter freestyle.
Oof.
I mean, even I know. That's a beast of a workout.
Yeah.
So what is the strategy behind that?
Oh, wow.
Why would a coach drop that on their swimmers?
Now we're getting to the meat of the training.
Okay.
These high volume, high intensity workouts, they serve multiple purposes.
I see.
Designed to test those physical limits. For sure, build mental resilience.
Right.
And it could be part of their late season peaking strategy, depending on when their big competitions are.
Oh, late season peaking.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So training cycles, right?
Okay.
Are all about strategically phasing your training to optimize performance. So it typically starts with, we talked about that base building where you're focusing on technique and just general fitness.
Right.
And then you move into a phase where you're increasing the intensity and the volume.
Like that crazy November workout?
Like that November workout, exactly.
Yeah.
And then all of that is leading up to your peak phase,
Go.
which prioritizes speed and fine-tuning everything for competition.
Gotcha.
And then finally you have the tapering phase,
Okay.
where the volume and intensity actually decrease to allow for recovery and to make sure the athletes are fresh for race day.
So it's like a whole carefully choreographed dance
Yes.
leading up to that final performance.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have these phases.
Yeah.
Can we pinpoint them in these workouts?
That's a good question.
Like, is there a really clear, periodization strategy that we can see?
It's tough to say for certain without more context.
Sure.
But we're definitely seeing hints. The progression in distance and intensity from September to November suggests a buildup. And then we see some meet prep practices sprinkled throughout.
Yeah, those meet prep practices kind of stand out.
Yeah.
What makes a practice meet prep?
Sometimes they're structurally different.
Okay.
Sometimes they're not.
So like what?
It really depends on the coach and the needs of the swimmers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you might see more speed work in a meet prep practice or race pace simulations or a focus on specific strokes that they'll be competing in.
Gotcha.
It's all about fine-tuning and getting those race day jitters out.
It's like tailored to
Yeah,
each
those-
meet. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
But wait, before we get too serious here,
Yeah.
can we talk about these fun workouts?
Yeah.
We have a battleship practice with a point system
Oh, yeah?
and a 12 days of Xmas practice.
That's fun.
It seems like this coach knows how to have a little bit of fun with it, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that training doesn't have to be all drills and intensity.
Right.
Got to keep it fresh.
Got to keep it fresh and engaging.
So as we're looking at this plan overall,
Yeah.
does the intensity ramp up consistently?
That's a good question.
Or are there like noticeable peaks and valleys? Are there
Wow.
periods of like lower intensity
Yeah.
or rest built in?
That's a really important point because burnout is real,
Probably.
even for these elite athletes.
Absolutely.
So let's break it down by month and see what kind of patterns we find.
Okay, sounds good.
This deep dive is about to get even more interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go month by month.
Okay.
We already talked about September, which is all about building that strong foundation, focusing on technique.
Right, especially freestyle.
Lots of freestyle. Yeah, shorter distances and lots of drills.
Yep.
But then as we move into October,
Things start to ramp up
they do.
Yeah.
The training wheels come off.
a little bit.
We see more 200-meter freestyle sets.
Yeah, and that first meet prep practice pops up on October 22nd,
Oh, that's right.
hinting at a competition.
Yeah, so it seems like there's an upcoming competition.
Right.
So yeah, just like we talked about, that shift from building the base to increasing intensity and introducing more endurance work.
Yeah, and it seems like it just keeps escalating into November.
Yeah.
That 5x100 freestyle on November 29th.
Oh yeah, that was a tough one.
I mean, could that be part of a peaking phase,
It could be. Yeah.
depending on when their competitions are?
Depending on the competition schedule. Yeah.
Right.
We don't know exactly when they're competing, but it would make sense
Right.
to be peaking around then.
All that hard work culminating in like the big competition.
Exactly.
But then December,
December throws a curveball.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Battleship and 12 days of Xmas.
Right.
Those seem so much lighter
A little more fun.
compared to November.
Right?
What's the strategy there?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Is it intentionally like easing up
It's possible.
after that really intense November?
It could be a strategic move to incorporate some active recovery.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's just, the coach acknowledging the holidays
So
and like trying to inject some fun into the training.
keep it light.
Keep it light, exactly.
Smart, either way.
Yeah, for sure.
So then January,
January?
back to business.
It seems so.
Yeah, we see a return to the distance freestyle with some added sprint work and another meet prep practice on January 14th.
Right. So it could be another build up toward a competition.
So like a second cycle
It's possible, yeah.
of building and peaking.
Yeah, we don't know for sure, but that's a plausible interpretation.
Okay.
Okay.
And then February's got kind of a mix of stroke specific practices,
Yeah, another.
another meet prep,
Yeah.
and what is this?
And a practice dedicated to IM work.
IM.
Yeah, so IM stands for individual medley,
Oh,
which means they swim all 4 competitive strokes in one race.
wow.
Butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, and freestyle.
Wow, that's a challenge.
Talk about a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a real test of a swimmer's versatility.
absolutely.
As we're going month by month here, I'm realizing we're seeing these hints of a training cycle,
Yeah.
but it's not as like clearly defined as you might see in a textbook example of periodization.
That's a really good observation.
Yeah.
And I think it underscores an important point that real-world training plans,
Right.
they don't always adhere to a rigid formula.
Of course.
Coaches have to factor in so many different variables.
Yeah.
The timing of the competitions, the individual needs of their swimmers,
Right.
even things like school breaks or holidays can throw a wrench in the plan.
Yeah, like we saw with December.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of adapting and fine-tuning that has to happen
all the time.
on the fly.
Constantly, yeah.
Wow.
And that's what makes looking at these real-world training plans so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like peeking behind the curtain and seeing how coaches have to adapt and modify their approaches to meet these ever-changing demands of the season.
It's a dynamic puzzle.
It is.
So maybe we can't neatly label each phase of this training cycle.
Right.
But what can we say about like the overall intensity arc?
That's a great question.
Is there a general trend we're seeing?
Well, I think we've seen a clear progression. Like we start off with September
Yeah.
and that solid foundation,
Okay.
and then things ramped up October,
All right.
November,
Mhm.
and then December was kind of like a little break.
A little more fun.
And then January, February, back to building up to competitions
Yeah, it seems like it.
with those meet prep practices.
Exactly. You've really captured it. There's a definite like ebb and flow to the intensity.
Yeah.
It's not a perfectly linear progression,
Yeah.
but you can see that the coach is intentionally challenging these swimmers
Mm-hmm.
and strategically incorporating those periods of higher and lower intensity.
Right. And you have to consider all the factors too,
Exactly.
competition schedules,
Mm.
individual needs, holidays.
All those things.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it really highlights the dynamic nature of coaching.
For sure.
It's not just about following a set plan, you know?
Right.
It's about observing your athletes and making those adjustments as you go.
So speaking of that.
Looking at this plan, is there anything you think this coach might do differently? Or something you would add or change based on your own expertise?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's hard to critique without knowing the specifics of this team and their goals, but
Of course.
one thing I always emphasize is individualized training.
Okay.
You know, every swimmer is different.
Right.
And while that general plan provides structure, tailoring certain aspects to individual needs can be incredibly beneficial.
So maybe adding in some notes for modifications.
Exactly.
Based on a swimmer's strengths and weaknesses.
Yep. Or even incorporating regular assessments to track progress and really pinpoint those areas that need a little more attention.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So that way the plan remains dynamic and responsive to each swimmer's unique journey.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really interesting sign. I feel like we've gone from just basic concepts to really like analyzing a full season's worth of workouts.
We have.
And even thinking about how a coach could individualize that plan.
Yeah, it's been a great exploration.
Yeah.
And it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more out there in terms of sports science and training methodologies.
That's true.
And coaching philosophies. You know, it's really fascinating.
And for everyone listening, you know, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into these topics that fascinate you.
Absolutely.
Whether it's swim training or something else entirely.
Keep learning.
Yeah, there's always more to discover.
Exactly. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
When it's applied. So as you continue your own fitness journey or even just your journey of learning, think about how you can use these insights to make smarter decisions, set new goals, and ultimately achieve your full potential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
Until next time, keep those brains and bodies active.
Sounds good.